Okay.
I'm curious. I'm curious about the different quote unquote completed man or real man formulations in the different traditions. So now I'll stick to Taoism. The real man or the sage, as found in Taoist texts, seems quite developed. It's beyond small e enlightenment, but it's not necessarily, in my estimation, a Jesus or a Krishna or
Buddha.
Buddha.
Yeah, yeah.
The,
Thank you for bringing Taoism up because we've neglected it, and it's extraordinary. I mean, it's genius, and I think Clary describes the genius of the Chinese spiritual, philosophers, or I don't know the exact wording, but there's no question with the Tao Te Ching and the I Ching. I mean, yeah. So in Taoism, there's even less preoccupation with the ego. I mean, culturally, they're not particular. I mean, it's not the most ego-driven, individualized-driven, region of the world like here in the West. But in Taoism, yeah, they go straight for reality. And so I don't know what more I can say to that. They go straight for reality, nothing in between. Uh, and now, if you look at their practices, they are rigorous, and you don't. No one. There's a book called two two students of a Taoist master wrote his biography in English. I think they're both surgeons or something. They're successful people, but they studied under a Taoist sage, and he described in considerable detail their training. And it looks more like Sufi. I mean, more like what Carlos Castaneda went through than what you would see in Buddhism or and I'll just stop right there, or Christianity. But people have very, very, very little idea of how much power is packed in those 81 pages. And so, if you want the simple path, well, again, it depends on the person. Some people, it's like musical ability or mathematical ability, or you can learn to play. You don't need a lot of ability to learn to play some pieces on the piano, but it's going to take some work. Other people, they just hear it once and they just play it because they've got perfect pitch and they've got more capacity for that. But they may not have the ability to do the textures of the emotion. That what's the word I'm looking for? The not the technical ability, but the artistic ability.
yeah.
And so it's very, very, in a way it's complex, but in a way it's not. So yeah, Taoism is stripped bare of all of this, all of these extras. And for some people, I recommend it highly.
So my question more specifically, if you can answer it, what is the real man or sage? It's not
A real
just
man is a completed man. But that's a man that's a real human. See, you don't even start to be human till you wake up. That's the horrible thing to have to say out loud. But the reality is life does not start until you wake up. Would
yeah.
you agree with that? What do you think?
I would 100 my yeah.
Yeah, so
I would
human life doesn't start until you wake up. And as painful as that may be for us modern people, what can I say? It's a fact. In my experience and the experience of everybody I know that has had similar experiences or whatever you want to call it. So that's just that. I don't know what to say. But so yeah, a real human is a real human. And they start from there, right?
yeah, but so I guess I'm curious about the breadth of what real man or sage is in Taoist usage, because it doesn't seem just like waking up, because upon waking up, they're not you're not as, unless if you've done a lot of ego work before that like the Sufis do, you're not as refined as their real man or sage.
Have you ever noticed that their sages tend to be elderly guy? They talk about old men crossing a river on thin ice, and they walk very carefully, and they walk very, they're very, very sensitive, and they're very, very. I don't know, but how I see. There's several problems. One is they're writing in an ancient Chinese dialect, and unlike, say, let's say Stephen Mitchell or something, Clary is translating from the original. 100 years later, there'd be another dialect or another commentary, right? 100 years later, another, right? And it keeps going, right? So there's a lot of difficulties in a 21st century American trying to tease out precisely what was meant by the word real when speaking about Taoists in the, what is it, 5 centuries before Christ, right? Something like that. So now, so this is why the translator must himself be very, very as evolved as possible and enlightened if possible, right? Because they have to be able to not only understand but then translate. And so here, Clary chose the word real human. He could have said something else, but that's what he chose. I think with Clary, the words are pretty much what you get, right? And he's a modern English writer, and so he says real instead of authentic or something like that. Who knows precisely? But again, those are details that, well, you could spend a lot of times on those details, and probably you should, right? But real man, I think, just means a man that's a sage, or a woman that's a sage. Well, why not? I mean, why shouldn't we all be sages, right? I mean, aspirationally. But we don't all have to be idiots. So, now, there's another lesson, though. It's how did Taoism do as a state religion? It didn't do very well. Well, Confucianism. And these things don't lend themselves to scaling, right? So we can also learn from the history of Taoism in China and Confucianism and other movements like that. And then we can watch the evolution of more easily accessible formulations like the Tantra of the Bon, or the Buddhists, or the Zen of Chan. So I'll stop there unless you want me to keep going. Okay, good.